Have you ever been invisible to someone who mattered most to you? Have you ever felt the sharp sting of absence, not because they left loudly, but because they quietly disappeared from the life you thought was permanent? What if I told you that the things left unsaid, the presence you no longer feel, and the silence between hearts carry more power than any argument, any fight, any goodbye? Today we're going to explore the pain, the regret, and the hidden truths behind losing someone, and why understanding this pain can change the way you see yourself, them, and the world forever. You know, there are moments in life when everything seems normal, ordinary even, and then suddenly a quiet shift occurs. It's subtle, almost imperceptible at first. And then one day you realize someone is gone, or maybe they're still there, but the connection, the spark, the way you felt when they were around has vanished. And in that silence, that absence, there's a sound you can't hear, but feel with every fiber of your being. It's the echo of loss. Loss doesn't always announce itself with loud gestures or dramatic explosions. It creeps in quietly, in ways that seem almost invisible. You might not notice it at first. You might think it's just a normal day. Everything's fine, but slowly you start seeing the little cracks, the spaces where laughter used to live, now filled with emptiness, the conversations that once carried warmth, now fading into awkward silences, the memories that used to bring joy, now pierce like tiny, silent arrows. That's the strange thing about loss. It doesn't always hit you like a storm. Sometimes it's more like a shadow that grows longer and colder with every passing day. I think about a friend of mine, someone who went through this very thing. He had been with someone for years, shared dreams, late night talks, plans for the future that felt so real. And then one day she walked away. There was no shouting, no dramatic confrontation. She just stopped showing up in the ways that mattered most. And at first, he told himself it was fine. "I'll be okay," he said. "Life goes on." But the truth is, the part of him that thrived on her presence started to shrink quietly. It was in the mornings when he woke up alone, in the meals he ate in silence, in the little habits they shared that he now had to navigate alone. Loss is silent, but it echoes loudly, and those echoes don't fade just because the world expects you to move on. Sometimes it's the smallest things that hit the hardest. A song on the radio, a smell in the kitchen, a corner of a bookstore where you once wandered together. All of a sudden, the world is full of reminders of what is missing. You think you're fine walking down the street, carrying on with your day, and then bam, a memory strikes. And it's like the past rushes in uninvited, and you're left feeling the absence in a way that nobody else can see. That's why loss is so deceptive. To the outside world, someone might seem fine. They might be smiling, joking, working, moving through life as if nothing happened. But inside, the echoes are relentless. They reverberate in quiet moments when no one is watching, reminding you of what you've lost, what you can't bring back, what no one can replace. I remember reading about a study where researchers asked people to describe the moments they felt the most profound grief. Interestingly, the majority didn't speak of loud tragedies or dramatic incidents. They spoke of the quiet times, the empty chair at the dinner table, the unreturned phone calls, the absence of someone's voice in the early morning. The thing about loss is that it doesn't always roar. It whispers, it lingers, it echoes in ways you can't always explain. And the people experiencing it are often the quietest of all. They carry the weight alone because that's what the world expects. It's easier to say you're fine than to explain the hollow ache that sits in your chest, a constant reminder of what's gone. And it's not just romantic loss that works this way. It can be the loss of a friendship, the loss of a parent, the loss of a dream you held on to for so long it became part of your identity. I think about someone who lost a sibling unexpectedly. There was no warning, no preparation, and in the weeks that followed, he didn't cry in public. He didn't post anything on social media, but late at night he would sit on the porch, staring at the sky, feeling the emptiness that had quietly become a permanent part of him. He carried on with life, but the echo of loss was always there, soft, insistent, shaping everything he did. That's the strange reality of human emotion. The things we lose silently become the things that define us the most. Loss is silent, but it also teaches you something about presence, about how fleeting, precious, and fragile it is. There's a story I heard about a couple who had grown apart over the years. They had drifted into routine, into habits that didn't nurture the bond they once cherished. And then one day, one of them left. And the person who remained, the one who hadn't realized how much was at stake, suddenly understood that every small gesture, every moment of laughter, every shared look mattered more than they had ever imagined. The loss echoed so loudly because it reminded them of what they had ignored while it was right in front of them. That's the cruelty and the beauty of silence. It doesn't punish you overtly, but it forces reflection. It forces awareness. And the echo of what's lost becomes a teacher. Even if it hurts like hell, I want you to think about this in your own life. Maybe there's someone you've lost, or someone who left quietly without saying goodbye. Maybe it's a friendship that faded, or a love that ended without explanation. The pain isn't always visible. You might walk through life feeling as if the world hasn't noticed, as if no one sees the hole left behind. But the truth is, loss doesn't need an audience. Its echoes are personal, intimate, and unavoidable. They find their way into your thoughts, your routines, your dreams, until you carry them whether you want to or not. And sometimes the people who caused the loss, the ones who left, who walked away, who drifted apart, they will never admit the depth of their own grief. They may act indifferent. They may pretend it didn't matter. But the silent echoes, they feel it too, even if they hide it. I once knew someone who lost a partner to circumstances they couldn't control. They told themselves they were strong, that they didn't care. And yet, months later, they were caught staring at old photos, replaying memories in their head, missing the sound of a laugh, the way their partner used to make them coffee on rainy mornings. They never admitted it to anyone. They didn't have to. The echo of that loss lived inside them, shaping them, quiet but persistent, a ghost that moved with them through every moment of their life. And that's what makes the human heart both resilient and fragile. It can endure silence. It can carry echoes. It can survive absence. But it doesn't forget. It doesn't erase. The silent losses, the quiet departures, they linger. They teach us about love, about presence, about the invisible threads that connect us to people we've lost. And they remind us that pain doesn't always need to be acknowledged to be real. Sometimes the most profound lessons come from the silent, echoing moments. So if you're sitting here today, thinking about someone you've lost, someone who walked away quietly, someone whose absence is louder than words, I want you to remember this: that echo is proof. Proof that the connection mattered. Proof that the bond was real. Proof that you left an imprint on someone's life that words alone cannot capture. Loss is silent, yes, but the echo is undeniable. And in that echo, there is a reminder of the power, the significance, and the beauty of your presence. The world may not see it. They may not understand it. And sometimes the person who lost you may never admit the weight of their own grief. But you will know it. You will feel it. And that feeling, that silent, reverberating ache, it's the truth that loss leaves behind. It's the reminder that what we have with people matters, and that absence, no matter how quiet, shapes us in ways that are profound, permanent, and deeply human. So even in the quiet moments, when the world seems unaware, when no one notices the empty space beside you or the hand that used to hold yours, know this loss may be silent, but its echoes speak volumes. And in those echoes, we find both pain and understanding, sorrow and wisdom, absence and the undeniable proof that connection, true connection, was never wasted. You know, there's a weight that most people carry silently through life. It's not a physical weight. You can't see it. You can't touch it. But it presses on the chest. It lingers in the mind. It shows up in moments you weren't expecting, when the world is quiet and you're left alone with your thoughts. That weight is regret. And when someone loses you, when the connection that once felt so natural and vital is gone, regret can become heavier than words. Regret doesn't shout. It doesn't wave a flag to announce its presence. It sneaks in slowly, almost unnoticeable, until suddenly it's all-consuming. It's in the late nights when they replay conversations, imagining the things they could have said differently. It's in the mornings when they wake up alone, realizing the comfort, the ladder, the love is no longer there. Regret is heavy because it doesn't have closure. It doesn't offer apologies or explanations. It just sits there quietly, a constant reminder of the mistakes, the missed opportunities, the moments that can never be reclaimed. Think about it this way. Most people don't regret the things they said. They regret the things they didn't say. The words they held back out of fear, pride, or stubbornness. The apologies they never offered. The kindness they withheld. The chances they didn't take to show love and appreciation. There's a story I heard about a man who had been in a long-term relationship. He never told his partner how deeply he valued her, how much he admired the small, subtle ways she made life brighter. He thought she knew. He assumed she understood. And when she walked away, that silence, the words left unspoken, became a weight on him heavier than anything he had ever experienced. That's the cruelty of regret. It isn't loud, but it can crush the spirit quietly, relentlessly, without mercy, and it's universal. A survey conducted by researchers at the University of Scranton revealed that people spend more time regretting missed opportunities than mistakes they actually made. In fact, over 80% of adults reported that their greatest regrets involved relationships, things they didn't do, words they didn't say, chances they didn't take. That tells you something about the human heart. We feel the weight of absence more than presence. We feel the weight of what we failed to do more than what we actively did wrong. And when someone loses you, that weight becomes unbearable because it's tied to something real, something irreplaceable, something profoundly ours to lose. Regret also has a way of changing how people see themselves. It makes them question their choices, their decisions, their timing. It gnaws at the edges of pride, leaving them exposed, vulnerable, and often ashamed. I think of someone I knew who had let a partner drift away over years of neglect, ignoring the small needs, dismissing the subtle signs of unhappiness, assuming there would always be time. When she finally left, he didn't cry openly. He didn't storm into her life to plead or explain. He simply began to feel the crushing silence of what he could have done differently. Every day became a reminder of the opportunities he had wasted, and the regret was heavier than words could ever express. And yet there's another layer to regret. It's not just about what they failed to do. It's about the understanding that comes too late. It's the realization that the things that really matter, the small gestures, the quiet attentions, the effort to show love and appreciation cannot be manufactured after the fact. You can't buy back the lost mornings, the unspoken kindness, the moments when you could have been present. That's why regret is so heavy. It's not just the memory of loss, it's the awareness of responsibility. It's the knowledge that you could have acted differently, that you could have been braver, more attentive, more loving, and you didn't. And now, all you have is the weight, a burden that sits silently inside you, a reminder of the past you cannot rewrite. I remember hearing a story about a woman who had lost a dear friend due to a trivial argument. Years later, she admitted that her deepest regret wasn't the fight itself, it was the silence that followed. She never reached out. She never tried to repair the bond. The regret, the what if, the knowledge that a friendship could have been saved if only she had acted sooner, became a quiet torment she carried for years. And that's the thing about regret. It doesn't need an audience. You don't have to confess it. You don't have to say it aloud. It exists inside, shaping the way you move, the way you feel, and the way you approach the future. It's heavier than words because it doesn't allow escape. It doesn't vanish with explanation or justification. It simply is. Regret also teaches something about love, about connection, about the fragility of human relationships. When someone loses you and the weight of their regret settles in, it is because they recognize finally the depth of what was lost. They realize that your presence, your energy, your influence was irreplaceable. That realization, as quiet as it may be, is profound, and while it may not be spoken, it resonates in ways that cannot be ignored. I've known people who carry that kind of regret for decades, people who never admit it, people who never act on it, but who are quietly reshaped by it. Their lives are forever influenced by the loss, because regret is not just about memory, it's about impact, awareness, and the truth of what mattered. And the truth is, we often see regret as a punishment, something to avoid. But in reality, it's a mirror. It shows what we value. It reflects what we care about, what we've neglected, what we've failed to nurture. When someone loses you and carries regret, it means that your presence was meaningful. It means that your actions, your love, your time mattered. And while that regret is heavy, it's also an acknowledgement of your significance. It's proof that losing you leaves a mark deeper than they can ever say. Regret is also unpredictable. It doesn't arrive on schedule. It doesn't respect time. It can show up years later when the world seems calm, when the life is moving forward, and suddenly, bam, it hits. A memory resurfaces, a song plays, a scent drifts through the air, and in an instant, the weight of what could have been presses down, reminding them of the moments they failed to appreciate, the chances they ignored, the words they left unsaid. That's why regret is heavier than words. It doesn't live in a single moment. It accumulates, it builds, and it follows silently, invisibly, always reminding them of what is missing. There's a story I heard about a man who lost his partner because he never spoke about his feelings, never expressed his gratitude, never made her feel fully seen. She left not with anger, but with quiet sorrow. He spent years pretending he was okay, but in the quiet moments, he would find himself thinking of her laughter, her kindness, the way she looked at him in moments of connection he had failed to recognize. Every unspoken word, every missed opportunity, every overlooked gesture became a weight he could never escape. That weight, that is the true heaviness of regret. And it's a weight most people carry alone, without admitting it to anyone, because words could never capture it anyway. Regret is heavy because it is private, it is intimate, it resides in the mind and heart of the person experiencing it, often invisible to the world around them. You might never hear it. You might never know it, but that doesn't make it any less real. When someone loses you, the unspoken, if-onless, and what-ifs are more powerful than any argument, any explanation, any apology. Regret is heavier than words because it exists where no one can touch it, where no one can fix it, and where it changes the person carrying it in ways that last a lifetime. And yet there is a strange kind of beauty in regret. It teaches awareness, it teaches empathy, it teaches us to value people while we have them, to speak the words that matter, to act in ways that reflect our love and appreciation. When someone loses you and carries the weight of regret, it is proof that your presence was powerful, significant, irreplaceable. It is proof that you mattered in ways they may never be able to admit, but which shape them quietly, profoundly, forever. So when you think about loss, think about regret too. Understand its weight, its silence, its invisible pressure. Know that when someone loses you, and they carry regret inside them, it is a testament to your importance, to the love and connection you brought into their life. Regret is heavier than words, yes, but it is also a reminder that you were never ordinary, never forgettable, never insignificant. It is a reminder that your presence mattered in ways that echo silently, but powerfully through the lives of those who lost you. You know, there's a difference between missing someone and missing their essence. It's easy to think that loss is about absence, the empty space they leave, the quiet chair at the table, the silence on the phone, but it's much deeper than that. When someone loses you, what they miss most isn't just your presence. It's the part of you that touched their life, the energy that shaped their days, the way you made ordinary moments feel extraordinary, They miss the essence of who you are, and that absence leaves a mark that can't be filled or replaced. It's strange how human beings measure presence. We think we count by physical proximity, by time spent together, by shared routines. But the truth is, what people miss is the intangible. It's the laughter that lifted them when they felt low. It's the look that made them feel understood without explanation. It's the energy, the warmth, the sense of safety, and even the subtle inspiration that comes from knowing someone truly sees you. When you leave, all those things don't just vanish. They linger in memory, in reflection, and in the quiet ache of what is missing. And it's in that space, the absence of essence, that loss becomes something far heavier than anyone can admit. I think about a friend I knew who had a partner for several years. She wasn't the loudest, the most flamboyant, or the most outwardly expressive person, but she had this quiet energy that made life feel alive. She noticed the small things, how he liked his coffee, how he struggled in moments of stress, the tiny triumphs he celebrated privately. She didn't just exist beside him, she became part of his world in a way that shaped how he experienced it. When she left, he didn't just miss her presence in the room. He missed the way she made him feel alive, the way she made him better, the way she reminded him of what joy could feel like. That is the essence of loss. It is far more than a physical absence. It is the absence of a force that once shaped life itself, and essence cannot be quantified. You can't measure it in hours spent, or texts exchanged, or even shared experiences. Essence lives in the subtlety of character, the uniqueness of perspective, the authenticity of presence. People don't always realize how deeply they rely on someone's essence until it is gone. There's a story I heard about a man who lost a lifelong friend. They had shared years of adventures, but the friend wasn't there for all of them in the conventional ways. What he missed years later wasn't just the laughter or the company, it was the clarity, the perspective, the way his friend's insight made him see the world differently. That essence had quietly shaped him, and losing it left a void that routine, distraction, and other relationships could never fill. Essence is often tied to the way someone makes you feel about yourself. There's a subtle magic in relationships where people don't just share moments, they amplify the best in each other. And when that person is gone, the absence isn't just in space, it's in identity. People miss the version of themselves that existed when you were there. They miss the courage, the confidence, the laughter, and the calm that you drew out of them. Losing you isn't just about losing a person, it's about losing the reflection of yourself that was nurtured and inspired by them. That's why it hurts more than they ever say. It's not just your presence, they miss the part of themselves that lived fully only when you were near. I remember reading about someone who lost a childhood friend. They hadn't spoken in years, hadn't kept up with each other's lives, and yet, when the friend passed away suddenly, the grief was unlike anything they expected. It wasn't the missed conversations that haunted them. It wasn't the lost weekends or the plans that never materialized. It was the absence of the essence of that friendship, the perspective, the energy, the quiet understanding that could only be shared between the two of them. That's the thing about human connection. Essence lingers far longer than physical presence, and when it is gone, it leaves an echo that is impossible to replace. People often underestimate the quiet impact someone can have on their lives. You may think you're ordinary, that your presence is small, that the world moves on regardless. But the truth is, the essence you bring into someone's life, the way you make them feel, the way you challenge them, the way you nurture them, is something that lingers long after you're gone. And when that is lost, the silence is deafening. People may laugh, work, or distract themselves, but the emptiness of essence remains unspoken and profound. Essence is also about authenticity. When you bring your true self into a relationship, you offer someone a lens through which they can understand the world more deeply. You bring your humor, your insight, your empathy, and your energy, and in doing so, you leave an imprint. And when you leave, That imprint does not disappear. People may not admit it, they may not even recognize it fully, but they feel it in the quiet moments when life is not as vivid, when joy is muted, when the world seems slightly less colorful. They miss more than you. They miss the unique perspective, the authenticity, the unspoken influence that shaped them in subtle but profound ways. I once knew a woman who lost her partner after years of shared growth and quiet intimacy. He had this way of making her feel heard, seen, and understood. Not every day was perfect, not every conversation was deep, but his presence brought a clarity and calm to her life that she only realized was missing after he was gone. She tried to keep going, tried to find solace in other friendships and routines, but there was a quiet hollow, a space that only his essence had occupied. That is the pain of missing essence. It's invisible to the world, but it shapes every choice, every thought, every emotion in ways that cannot be measured. Essence is also tied to inspiration. People miss the way someone makes life feel bigger, brighter, more possible. There are individuals who, by their mere presence, encourage others to take risks, to explore creativity, to strive for something better. When that person leaves, the loss is more than emotional, it's motivational. It's a missing force that once pushed someone to be braver, kinder, or more alive. And that absence resonates in a way that no words, no explanation, no apology can ever capture. Even time cannot diminish the weight of missing essence. You may be apart for weeks, months, or years, and still the memory of their energy, their influence, and their way of being remains. People might think they have moved on. They might smile, laugh, and interact with others. But beneath it all, there's a quiet longing for the essence that cannot be replicated. That's the difference between presence and essence. You can be with people, share experiences, and still feel that something vital is missing because the uniqueness of that person, their essence, cannot be replaced. The most profound losses are often the ones no one else can see. They are internal and visible, but deeply felt. Losing someone's essence is losing a part of life that gave you meaning, depth, and color. It's a quiet, persistent ache, not always acknowledged, not always spoken, but undeniably powerful. People may act as if they are unaffected, may hide their pain behind busy schedules, casual conversations, or social media updates. But the truth is there. The essence of someone once shared cannot be duplicated. And when it's gone, it is missed in ways that echo through the heart and mind long after the person has left. And the remarkable thing about essence is that it proves the impact you've had. It shows that your presence was transformative, not in grand gestures, but in the quiet, subtle, meaningful ways. The person who lost you may never admit it, may never speak of it, but they carry the void of your essence with them every day. It shapes their thoughts, their decisions, their view of the world. It is the invisible fingerprint of your being that lingers, reminding them silently of what they had and what they lost. So when you think about leaving, when you think about absence, know this: people miss more than your presence. They miss the essence that cannot be recreated, the authenticity, the energy, the influence, the quiet power of just being yourself. That is the part of you that transforms lives, shapes hearts, and leaves echoes that last far beyond your departure. And that is the truth that most people will never admit, but will carry quietly, profoundly, for the rest of their lives. You know, there's a certain kind of pain that hides in plain sight. People walk through life carrying it as if it's nothing, smiling, laughing, talking, making it seem like the world hasn't touched them. And yet, beneath that exterior, beneath the composed gestures and the carefully crafted words, there's an emptiness that no one else sees. That emptiness is real, and it's heavy. It sits quietly in the chest, in the corners of the mind, in the moments when no one is looking, and it reminds them of what they've lost, what they've failed to protect, or what they cannot fix. People mask pain with pride, but the emptiness remains. And that emptiness, it's profound. Pride is a strange thing. It feels like armor, but it is often a cage. People wear it to protect themselves, to hide vulnerability, to avoid appearing weak. They tell themselves, I'm fine, I'm okay, everything is under control. And on the surface, they may seem unshakable, even untouchable. But inside, the loss, the grief, the sorrow lingers like a shadow. It doesn't matter how many smiles they offer, how many conversations they navigate, how many tasks they accomplish, the emptiness is always there. And it grows quietly in silence because pride refuses to let it be acknowledged. I remember a man I knew who had lost someone he loved deeply. He never cried in front of friends. He never admitted the depth of his sadness. Instead, he buried himself in work, in social interactions, in distractions that kept him busy. He was polite, even cheerful at gatherings, but late at night, when the world was quiet, he would sit alone, staring at the ceiling, thinking of the person he could no longer hold, the conversations they would never have, the future they would never share. He carried his pride like a shield, convincing himself and others that he was okay, but the emptiness never left. That is the paradox of pride. It conceals the wound, but it cannot heal it. There's something universal about this. Most people are not comfortable exposing the depth of their pain. Vulnerability feels dangerous. To show that you are hurting feels like admitting weakness. And so, even in moments of immense loss, they mask it. They joke when they are hurting. They engage in small talk when their hearts are breaking. They appear composed, even when inside the ache is profound. And while others may admire their strength, they do not see the emptiness that lives beneath it. They do not see the silence that follows them into quiet moments. And that emptiness, it lingers. Think about it. People often hide grief in ways that make it almost invisible. They might post pictures on social media, laugh at gatherings, attend parties, or even start new relationships to fill the void. Outwardly, life appears normal. Outwardly, they seem to have moved on. But inside, they are haunted by the absence of what once was. Every memory, every reminder, every subtle trigger carries them back to a place of quiet sorrow that pride will not allow them to speak of. That's why loss is so lonely, not just for the one who left, but for the one who remains behind, struggling silently with emotions they cannot fully express. I think of a woman who lost her partner unexpectedly. At work, she smiled, engaged, and carried on as though nothing had changed. She comforted others, helped colleagues, and maintained a cheerful facade. But when she came home, the weight of the loss would settle in like a fog. She would sit in silence, staring at the empty corner of the room where he used to sit, feeling the absence in a way that words could not describe. She carried her pride as a shield, but the emptiness was unshieldable. It was there in her thoughts, her quiet moments, and her dreams, reminding her that loss cannot be faked away. Pride does not just conceal emptiness, it also isolates it. People wear their composed faces, hoping no one will notice the emptiness, hoping no one will ask too many questions, hoping that if they act normal long enough, the pain will disappear. But emptiness does not vanish through pretense. It only deepens because while pride protects the ego, it does not touch the heart. The heart, untouched, continues to ache, and the ache manifests in subtle ways: restless sleep, fleeting moments of sadness, pangs of nostalgia, or the sudden, unexpected tear that comes when no one is watching. The emptiness is always there, waiting, reminding them of what they've lost, what they've failed to reclaim, or what cannot be fixed. There's a story I heard about a man who lost his closest friend. He never admitted the depth of his grief to anyone. Instead, he laughed at jokes, attended social events, and acted as though life was unaffected. But late at night, he would sit alone, looking at old photographs, remembering conversations, laughing quietly at private jokes that no one else understood. The emptiness of their absence was a silent companion, shaping his thoughts and his emotions in ways that pride could never conceal. That's the thing about human grief. It can be hidden from the world, but it cannot be hidden from the self. Sometimes pride comes from fear of judgment, fear of being vulnerable, fear of being misunderstood. People tell themselves, if I admit how much it hurts, they will think I'm weak, or if I let them see my pain, they will leave me too. And so they construct a wall, an image of composure, a mask of strength. But the emptiness behind that mask does not care about appearances. It waits patiently in the quiet spaces, the reflective moments, the times when the world moves on, but the heart does not. That emptiness is persistent, inescapable, and undeniable, even if no one else can see it. There's also the way pride distorts perception. People convince themselves that they are unaffected, that they are resilient, that they are fine, when in reality, the emptiness is growing. They may try to fill it with distractions, with achievements, with new relationships, or with accomplishments, but nothing can replace what was lost. And sometimes pride prevents them from seeking help or expressing their feelings because admitting the truth feels like surrender. And so the emptiness remains, quietly reshaping the contours of their days and nights. Even small losses carry this weight. It might not be the end of a life-long relationship or a sudden, dramatic departure. Sometimes it's the small things, a friend who drifts away, a colleague who moves on, a connection that fades slowly. And yet, even in these subtle moments, pride masks the grief. People act as though nothing has changed, as though life continues unbroken, while inside the quiet emptiness grows. They may speak in casual tones, laugh at jokes, or engage in small talk, but the truth, the absence of something meaningful, is always present. The emptiness doesn't care about appearances, it simply exists, silently shaping emotions and thoughts. There's a story I read about a young man who lost the person he loved deeply because he never communicated his feelings properly. He never said the words he needed to say, never acted on the moments that mattered, and never admitted to anyone how much he cared. When the loss occurred, he smiled, carried on, and acted as though life was the same. But every quiet moment reminded him of what he had failed to do, what he had left unsaid, what he could never reclaim. Pride concealed the pain, but it could not erase the emptiness. That emptiness lived in his thoughts, in his sleep, in the quiet moments when he was alone with himself. Even in our modern world, where people appear connected through technology, pride continues to hide emptiness. People post photos, updates, and smiling faces, creating the illusion that everything is fine. But behind the screens, in private rooms, in late night reflections, emptiness sits quietly, waiting to be acknowledged, waiting to be felt, waiting to remind them that appearances cannot replace truth. That is the paradox. The world sees strength, but only the individual knows the depth of the void that remains. And the most tragic part is that emptiness can be long-lasting. People may move on outwardly. They may find new connections, new routines, new distractions. But the emptiness lingers, a quiet reminder of what was lost, what was unspoken, what was never fully appreciated. It is persistent, subtle, and powerful, shaping their thoughts, their actions, and their feelings in ways that few can understand. And that is why masking pain with pride is only a temporary solution. It conceals the wound from others, yes, but it cannot heal it, and the emptiness remains. So when someone loses you, when they act composed, when they wear pride like armor, remember this: the emptiness they carry is real, profound, and persistent. It shapes their world even if they never admit it. It is silent, invisible, but undeniably powerful. People mask pain with pride, yes, but the void left by absence does not disappear, and the silent ache reminds them, over and over, of what mattered, what they lost, and what can never be replaced. You know, there's a part of life that most people resist, the part where pain teaches you something real. When someone leaves, when loss happens, when absence settles in, it's easy to feel bitter, to feel anger, to feel abandoned. But the truth is that true growth often comes from understanding the pain, not just your own, but theirs too. That doesn't mean excusing what happened or pretending it didn't hurt. It means looking at it, feeling it fully, and finding the lessons hidden in it. That is the path to becoming stronger, wiser, and more whole. Pain is a teacher disguised as suffering. When someone loses you and carries regret, emptiness, or longing, it reveals truths about human connection that are rarely visible in moments of comfort. You see, we grow not when things are easy, not when life goes according to plan, but when we are forced to confront the reality of loss, of disappointment, of absence. And that growth is profound because it comes from understanding. It comes from looking at the H in your own heart and recognizing the H in another's, even if they will never admit it. That dual awareness, your pain and theirs, is the foundation of true resilience. I think of someone I knew who had ended a long relationship. At first, she was consumed with sadness, anger, and regret. She wondered why he left, what she could have done differently, why the moments they shared weren't enough. But over time, she began to look beyond her own grief. She started to imagine what it must have been like for him, the regrets he carried, the pain he hid behind a facade of pride. She didn't justify his actions or diminish her own hurt, but she allowed herself to see the humanity in him, to understand the complexity of his feelings, to acknowledge that people are often flawed, afraid, and limited in ways that leave scars. That understanding became the turning point. In seeing his pain, she found compassion. In seeing her own, she found strength. And in that combination, she discovered growth. Growth is rarely linear. It's not a path that moves smoothly from hurt to healing. It twists, it loops, it doubles back on itself. There are days when the grief is raw, when the memory stings, when the absence feels unbearable. And then there are days when you glimpse clarity, when the lessons emerge, when you see that pain is not just an end, it is a doorway. It is a doorway to self-awareness, empathy, and wisdom. True growth requires patience, attention, and courage. It requires facing the discomfort of loss without flinching, without distraction, without avoidance. Only then can you understand what it means to grow from it. There's a story I heard about a man who lost someone he loved deeply. He spent years focusing on his own hurt, replaying the moments of loss and resenting the absence. But eventually, he began to reflect on the human experience, on the nature of connection, on the ways in which people fail each other despite their best intentions. He realized that his growth depended on understanding not only his own pain, but the pain of the other person as well. And in that realization, he found liberation. The weight of anger lifted, the bitterness faded, and he became capable of seeing the world more clearly, with empathy and compassion, without losing the lessons of the past. Understanding the pain of another does not mean excusing it. It does not mean minimizing your own hurt or pretending that the loss was easy. It simply means recognizing that human beings are complicated, that relationships are messy, and that everyone carries burdens they cannot fully express. When you accept this, you stop being trapped by resentment. You stop replaying old arguments or imagining what could have been differently. You allow yourself to grow, not in spite of the pain, but because of it. And your own pain is equally valuable. It is a mirror reflecting back what matters to you, what you need, what you desire, and what you must protect. Pain forces awareness. Pain teaches boundaries. Pain teaches self-respect. When someone leaves, when loss occurs, and when emptiness fills the space they once occupied, it is your opportunity to examine your own life, your own choices, and your own values. It is a moment to decide what you will hold on to, what you will let go of, and who you will become because of the experience. Growth begins there, in the quiet reflection, in the acknowledgement of what hurt, in the courage to face it fully. I think about people who have experienced profound loss and emerged with deeper empathy. They understand the fragility of human connection. They recognize the subtle power of presence and essence. They see the impact of their own actions and words on others. And they carry these lessons forward, not with bitterness, not with resentment, but with awareness. That awareness allows them to cultivate stronger relationships, to be more present, to nurture the people who matter in ways that they could not before. Pain, when understood, becomes the teacher of this awareness. There's also the power of perspective. When you begin to understand the pain of another, you realize that loss is rarely simple. There are reasons people leave, reasons relationships end, reasons connections fade. Most of the time, those reasons are complex, tangled, and not fully visible. By stepping into the space of empathy, by imagining the world through their eyes, you begin to understand the humanity behind the choices, the fear behind the actions, and the regret behind the silence. And that understanding softens resentment, replaces blame with clarity, and allows the heart to expand instead of contract. Growth thrives in that space of compassion. One of the most remarkable things about understanding pain is that it allows you to reclaim agency. You cannot change the past. You cannot rewrite the choices made or the moments lost, but you can choose how you respond. You can choose to let the pain harden you or to let it teach you. You can choose to let the emptiness define you or to let it guide you toward deeper self-awareness and richer empathy. True growth is about taking responsibility for your own journey, acknowledging the lessons hidden in sorrow, and using them to become stronger, wiser, and more capable of love and connection. I know someone who lost a relationship after years of deep connection. At first, he was consumed by grief, anger, and confusion. But over time, he began to reflect on both his own mistakes and the perspective of the person he lost. He considered their fears, their regrets, their unspoken pain. He thought about his own patterns, his own contributions to the distance. And gradually, he began to see the experience not as a tragedy, but as a teacher. He became more aware, more patient, more compassionate. He carried the lessons with him into future relationships and into his own life, richer and stronger than before. That is the essence of growth. It is forged in the fires of understanding, tempered by reflection, and shaped by empathy. True growth also means recognizing the impermanence of life. People leave, circumstances change, relationships shift. And when you acknowledge that nothing is permanent, that loss is inevitable, that pain is part of being human, you begin to approach life differently. You invest in what matters, speak the words that need to be spoken, show the love that needs to be expressed, and embrace the people who are present. Growth comes not from clinging to what is gone, but from understanding it, learning from it, and using it to live more fully in the present. There's a quiet strength in this kind of growth. It is not loud. It does not demand recognition. It is subtle, internal, and deeply transformative. It changes the way you perceive the world, the way you interact with others, the way you respond to challenges, and the way you navigate loss. It allows you to hold the duality of experience, the pain of loss, and the potential of understanding, and to move forward with clarity, compassion, and courage. Understanding the pain of both yourself and others also fosters forgiveness, not just toward them, but toward yourself. You recognize that everyone is flawed, that everyone makes mistakes, that everyone acts out of fear, pride, or limitation. You accept that you too have imperfections, moments of oversight, and choices you might regret. And in that acceptance, there is liberation. You no longer carry the bitterness or resentment that keeps the heart locked in the past. Instead, you carry wisdom, awareness, and the capacity to love more fully in the present. And finally, understanding pain transforms perspective. It teaches patience, resilience, and empathy. It allows you to recognize the invisible struggles in others, the silent burdens, the unspoken regrets. It reminds you that everyone is fighting battles you may not see. That awareness changes the way you engage with the world. It deepens relationships, enhances compassion, and fosters a sense of shared humanity that is both grounding and liberating. True growth is not measured in achievements or accolades. It is measured in the depth of understanding, the breadth of empathy, and the courage to face both your own pain and the pain of others with honesty and grace. So when someone leaves, when loss happens, when emptiness settles in, remember this growth is not about forgetting, moving on, or ignoring the pain. It is about understanding it fully, deeply, and honestly. It is about recognizing your own hurt, acknowledging their unspoken struggle, and allowing those experiences to shape you into someone wiser, more compassionate, and more resilient. True growth comes from holding both sides of the story in your heart, learning the lessons embedded in sorrow, and letting the pain teach you how to live, love, and connect more meaningfully than ever before. loss, regret, emptiness, and absence. They are not signs of weakness. They are reminders that we are alive, that we care, and that the connections we make leave marks deeper than words can express. People may never admit the weight of losing you. They may mask their pain with pride, hide their regret behind smiles, and try to move on as if nothing changed. But the truth is undeniable. Your presence, your essence, and the love you gave mattered profoundly. And here's the most important part. True growth doesn't come from pretending it didn't hurt. It comes from understanding it, from facing your own pain, and from seeing the humanity in theirs. Growth comes from taking the lessons that loss leaves behind and letting them guide you to be stronger, wiser, and more compassionate. It comes from embracing the echoes of absence, the heaviness of regret, and the emptiness masked by pride, and using them to shape a life that is richer, fuller, and more meaningful. So carry this with you, even when they don't say it, even when they don't show it, even when the silence feels unbearable. You have changed the world by simply being in it. And by understanding the pain, yours and theirs, you rise above it, you grow beyond it, and you step into a version of yourself that is unstoppable, unshakable, and unforgettably alive.